Hey, how's it going? It's Keith Townsend from the CTO Advisor, and you're watching another CTO Dose in conjunction with Build Day Live. We're here sponsored by the great folks at SuperMicro, talking to the VP of FAA, Field Application Engineering and Business Development, Vik. Vik, I'm going to completely butcher your last name, but I'm going to take a shot at it anyway. Malyala.
You're absolutely right.
All right, so I'm glad that worked out for us. So Vik, first off, field application engineering. Let's take one part of the title and dissect that, because I think that's a title I have not seen in the industry. What is field application engineering?
So there is obviously industry parlance versus how it's implemented in different companies. At SuperMicro, it is the department that actually bridges the gap between the engineering, the sales, and the customer. Very simply put, the idea of this organization is to be the trusted advisor for the customer and bring the right technology to them, and also be the voice for the customer within SuperMicro, so that the overall business and as well as the technical engagement with the customer happens seamlessly.
So one of the titles that I would see in the industry that would be comparable would be a field CTO, where they're out talking to customers. But it seems like SuperMicro has taken a slightly different approach, because your title, your organization also includes business development. So how does the two kind of complement each other inside of SuperMicro?
It's interesting you asked. So the idea again here is no matter what are the technology that we are bringing to the customer, ultimately this need to solve the problem for the customers, and which in turn translates into business, right? And the idea again here is when we are already in the center of the business, and through technology we are enabling it, but ultimately when we are working with our technology partners, our customers, and our internal engineering and whatnot, it all enables in a way business. So I think it kind of merges these two, kind of functions into one. So you're right. I mean, in a way, it's a kind of a field CTO function. But as I said, in our company, the way we have defined the roles are like that. And just for what it's worth, in many companies, field applications engineering is part of the sales organization, and here it's actually a different department altogether. And I manage this kind of worldwide. The idea again here is we need to have a way to engage with the customers, and customers need to have more than one path to engage with SuperMicro. That's the idea behind it. So in a way, we are enabling the business, but technology being the main focus and differentiator there.
So let's talk about that relationship and how it's initiated. When I think of a traditional organization that uses kind of this sales overlay approach, that would be just part of the pre-sales part. I'd engage in one of your engineers as an SE or whatever the title would be. How do you, with it not being a function of sales, how do you actually engage with the customer? Like, where's the entry point in the relationship?
Very good. So we need to take a step back to look at how we operate, so we can kind of explain why it is formed that way. So the company, when it started off, we started with as a building block approach, and it's like 25 years ago. This is actually our 25th year in existence. And in the beginning, we started making so-called the motherboard, which is the heart and center of these systems. And that's what we started our business with. And in order to get to market, it's predominantly sent through distributors, because we're a small company, and the only way to reach out is through them. As the company started growing, and as we scale up in the chain, we started working with different system integrators, OEMs, and value-added resellers and whatnot. And today, when you look at SuperMicro, we are able to provide the complete system, whether it's a turnkey, proof of concept, whatever the way it may be. So company has evolved. So what happens in this is that depending on the type of customers that you engage with, the type of people that need to be worked with from SuperMicro is different. So when you're talking to a distributor, it's the product managers that are typically talking with the distributors and letting them know what products that we have, in addition to sales taking care of the sales function, right? When you move into OEMs and value-added resellers and whatnot, it kind of increases our workload in a way. So we cannot just think about like moving a, I would say, pizza box and expect it to just be enabled somehow somewhere. But we are looking into the next year where, what kind of certifications that we need to have, what kind of software that need to be installed. So the type of engagement with the customers is increasing. So part of the functions that the channel was doing, we are assuming that, right? As we get into a solution segment today, it's totally different, because what ends up happening is, customers' point of view, they may be using certain environments. Say, for example, if someone is using VMware for the vSAN applications, and they are quite happy with it, but maybe the economics are not working out, and they wanted to see if moving to, for example, KVM is a better option. And there are two ways to do it. For them to put the resources and engineering into that and do the entire qual in-house, which, number one, takes the resources away from doing the actual work, which should be what they should be focusing on. At the same time, it takes time also. And when we look at, when they look at companies like SuperMicro, what we are trying to do is, okay, you are using certain gear, why don't we take that work away from you? We do the certification with VMware, we do the certification based on the KVM, and now we'll be able to give you some data that you can start, going and working with. That way, you don't have to do the entire rework, and we are kind of scaling up. That's where we are stepping in, right? In a way, sales and FAEs kind of work hand in hand, right? The business development piece is slightly different, because in which case we may not even be having that business to start with, or a sales engagement. As we come across the customer requirements and we start talking to these customers, and once we feel that there is a good business opportunity and a reason to engage with them directly or indirectly, then we work and engage a sales into that.
So let's talk taxonomy a little bit, because SuperMicro, with the distribution background, can be a little bit confusing from the outside to look in. So as I think about legacy SuperMicro, the motherboard company, and I buy the product through distributors and not communicate directly with SuperMicro, I'd have a odd impression today of what a customer is. What you just described to me now is what I would traditionally consider a customer. So can you talk about like the difference between partner and OEM and end user customer, and how your organization interacts with all three?
Okay, great. So if you take a look at OEM as a customer, OEM typically ends up rebranding the product. It will not, eventually it will not bear a SuperMicro brand name on it. But the way we need to be working with OEM is typically it takes like several months to even a year, or sometimes even longer than that, to work with them to take a product, refine it, and modify it, customize it, whatever it may be needed, depending on the type of application. And once it is done, the same product will be, I would say, deployed, again and again over the next few years.
So this is the appliance model.
Correct.
As an end user customer, I'll buy an appliance. I might get support directly from that your OEM customer. I get support from that, and you guys on the back end work out any hardware related
software integration, the branding, the boxing, and whole 9 yards we take care of it. But the customer will never see SuperMicro name anywhere. Right. That's the whole idea. So we do work with these customers. One of the names that is already public is like Nutanix, right? If you take a look at a Nutanix appliance today, and you kind of peel it open, it's a SuperMicro underneath that. But I'm only talking about that because it's a public knowledge. But in that angle, we will be working with sales and an FAE, and we also have so-called an OEM product manager. Right? These are the three important, and then of course on the post-sale side of it, there is a program management and other functions. But these are the three that will be the primary interface with the OEM customer. Whereas if you are looking at, we call it an end user, say for example, if it is Intel or Morgan Stanley, I'm just talking about certain customers that we categorize under our end users. Then the SuperMicro brand name retains, number one. Two, in which case, an OEM product manager is not needed, because it's not to a specific product. It is to do with a customer that is trying to use SuperMicro product in their environment that is based on different applications that they are trying to run on.
So I think there's an interesting angle that talked to Patrick Wayne earlier, the strategist, about your capability to work with directly within this region. Customers who come up with an idea and they want to execute on an engineering idea, and they can talk to you guys directly, have meetings, whiteboard. There seems to be an angle. If I'm a enterprise customer and I see the SuperMicro inside of my HCI solution today, and I think to myself, you know what, I can do that. I can take vSAN or some other storage provider and build a data center full of this stuff. How do you work that type of opportunity with a customer?
Functionality is one thing. Second is optimization. So for my workload, am I getting the right performance from this box? Right? At the end of the day, that's all matters. It doesn't matter whether it is running a VMware or anything for them, the problem that they're trying to solve. So what we end up doing in this case is, number one, if a customer is already have been using certain solution, we want to understand within that, is there anything that we can do to make the user experience better? Is there anything that we can do? Of course, understanding the problem, right? If they're saying like, okay, I like this particular solution, but it's costing a lot.
Right.
So what do we do cost optimization? It's not about just dropping the price. It's about sizing the platform in the right way and be able to look at into the data center environment and say, if we are able to make certain changes, for example, running the data center at a higher temperature, that way you are able to reduce the air conditioning part of it, or be able to provide a solution that easily extends the life cycle support. So that way they don't need to change every 2 years. It may be 3 or 4 or 5 years. So we need to look at what their problem is, what they're trying to solve, and sometimes they may not even know, and sometimes we don't know.
Right.
So the whole engagement, that's where the whiteboarding comes into picture. We look at it. It's not about going and designing a brand new thing. It's about giving them a solution from our building block approach, where we can easily size it properly and get them a solution that actually meets their requirements.
Yeah, so I would like to, you guys don't use the term, but I'm saying you guys do value-added building blocks where you can take the basic components, everyone from an engineering on up to an executive, look, compute, storage, networking, not very difficult to figure out.
We use the term called resource optimized for this, right?
And then you come in and you help me take those building blocks, put that where you guys have 40%, more than 40% of your organization are engineers. I can tap into those resources and solution a hardware platform that better leverages my software. And for all intents and purposes, as much as I want to, as a customer, kind of do what an OEM would do, I can do as much as that or as little of that to optimize my environment.
Absolutely. It's about the independent software vendor, ISV collaboration and certification, and be able to provide either a proof of concept or a turnkey solution or anything in between.
So Vik, I really enjoyed the conversation. Looking forward to future innovations. And if you want to find, the super technical details of what Vik has discussed today, go to builddaylive.com to watch the content from the Build Day event, the Build Day Live event, where they take a big twin and build vSAN. It's really interesting content. Until the next CTO Dose, talk to you online, thectoadvisor.com, or on Twitter @CTOadvisor.